Before we start, if you enjoy the story, please leave a like and check if you're subscribed. The cold bit through Garrett Stone's skin like teeth. He'd been conscious for maybe 3 minutes, long enough to catalog the burning in his wrists where magnetic restraints held him suspended, the metallic taste of blood in his mouth, and the rhythmic drip of something echoing in the darkness. Long enough to remember the firefight at the weapons facility, the plasma burst that had taken down Miller, the stunning blow that had dropped him before he could reach the extraction point. The screaming started somewhere down the corridor, human screaming, raw and primal, the kind that came from a body shutting down in ways evolution had never prepared for. It lasted maybe 20 seconds before cutting off with surgical finality. Garrett's jaw tightened. Footsteps approached through the red-tinted gloom, measured, unhurried. She emerged from the shadows like something from a fever dream. Deep crimson skin caught the low light, smooth except for the angular plating of black armor that covered strategic areas of her body. Tall, easily 6'2", with a predator's economy of movement. Black hair fell past her shoulders, and those ears, elongated and animal-like, twitched slightly as she studied him. But it was her eyes that stopped his breath, molten gold bright against the red of her face, pupils slitted like a cat's. "You survived the interrogation drugs," she said, her voice low and accented with something that made each word feel deliberate. "That makes you either useful or entertaining." "I aim to please," Garrett rasped. She moved closer, circling him. He could see the subtle musculature in her exposed arms, the way her fingers flexed and relaxed in a pattern that suggested violence held at bay, the technological integration in her armor that pulsed with faint bioluminescence. "Your species interests the Khazreth Empire," she continued. "You're fragile, adaptable perhaps, but fundamentally weak, yet you raid our facilities. You refuse to accept your place in the hierarchy. We're funny that way." She stopped in front of him, close enough that he could smell something sharp and chemical emanating from her skin. "Do you know what I am, human?" "Pissed off?" Her lips curved, not quite a smile. "Elite caste, Huntress class. My body produces a neurotoxin through dermal contact. It triggers cascade failure in your synaptic pathways within minutes." She glanced toward the corridor where the screaming had stopped. "Your friend discovered this. He touched my arm while trying to escape." Garrett's pulse hammered against his ribs. She was still moving closer, her hand reaching toward his face. "I touch you. You die. Your body provides data on human neurological breakdown patterns." Her fingers brushed his cheek. "We refine our weapons. Your colonies fall." Garrett's entire body locked, waiting for the fire, the shutdown, the darkness. Nothing happened. Her hand remained against his skin, cool and smooth. 5 seconds. 10. Her eyes widened, pupils contracting to pinpoints. Her other hand came up, touching his neck, his jaw, his chest where his torn shirt exposed skin. Her breathing changed. "What are you?" she whispered. "Garrett Stone, Sergeant." "Shut up." Her voice had lost its professional edge. Both hands were on him now, exploring his face with something between clinical fascination and hunger. "This isn't possible. No species survives direct contact. The toxin is universal, works on every known biology." She stopped, her thumb tracing his lower lip. He watched her throat work as she swallowed. "You feel it," he said quietly. "I don't feel anything." But her hands were trembling. She stepped back abruptly, arms wrapping around herself. "They said humans were full of tricks. Genetic modifications, perhaps. Maybe I'm just lucky." She laughed, but it sounded broken. "Lucky. Every member of my caste is born untouchable. We cannot hold our own children without killing them. We cannot." She trailed off, her jaw clenching. "Breeding is done through artificial means. Combat is our only intimacy. We are the Empire's apex warriors because we have nothing else." Garrett watched emotions flicker across her face. "How long since someone touched you?" "Never." The word came out harsh. "No one has ever touched me and lived." The weight hung in the air between them. She turned away, pacing, her shoulders rigid. "I am Kirneth, 3rd Huntress of the Imperial Fleet. I was ordered to assess human resilience through toxin exposure. Instead, I find," she turned back, "an anomaly." "Yeah, I get that a lot." This time her smile had teeth. She crossed to him and keyed a code into his restraints. They released with a magnetic hiss, and Garrett dropped, catching himself against the wall. "Can you fight?" she asked. "Depends on who's asking." "Show me." Garrett moved. Not his best work. 3 days unconscious had done his reflexes no favors, but enough to show competence. He feinted left, drove in low, tried to sweep her legs. She flowed around him like water, her counterattack stopping a millimeter from his throat. Again, they went 3 more rounds, each one faster. On the 4th exchange, when his fist came within striking distance of her ribs, she caught his wrist and pulled him off balance. Suddenly they were pressed together, his chest against hers, her hand fisted in his shirt. Her breathing was ragged, so was his. "This is what you people do?" she asked, her mouth inches from his. "Touch without purpose? Without violence?" "Sometimes." Her eyes searched his face. "Show me." Garrett's hand came up slowly, fingers threading through the black silk of her hair, careful of those striking red ears. She went absolutely still, every muscle locked. He could feel her pulse where his thumb rested against her neck, rapid, animal quick. "You're afraid," he said. "I've never been afraid." "You are now." She kissed him like she was trying to kill him with it, all teeth and aggression and decades of starvation compressed into one desperate act. Garrett met her intensity, his free hand finding the small of her back where armor gave way to bare skin. She made a sound low in her throat, half growl, half something else entirely. When they broke apart, her pupils were blown wide, her chest heaving. "This is a mistake. I should report this. Have you executed properly?" "Are you going to?" Kerneth's hand slid up to his face again, cupping his jaw with a gentleness that seemed foreign to her. "I don't know what I'm going to do." Alarms shrieked through the facility, a cascading wail that turned Garrett's blood cold. Kerneth's head snapped toward the door, her entire body shifting into combat readiness. "Breach protocol," she said. "Internal sensors detected unauthorized biological interaction." Her expression hardened. They were watching. When elite cast members are compromised, they're terminated alongside the contamination source. The door burst open, 4 Khazreth guards, weapons raised. The lead guard's voice crackled through his helmet. "Huntress Kerneth, you are contaminated. Submit to cleansing." Kerneth's response was her fist through his faceplate. The fight lasted 6 seconds. She moved like violence incarnate, each strike precise and lethal. When the last guard hit the floor, she was already stripping weapons, tossing Garrett a plasma rifle. "Can you shoot?" "Well enough." "Good. We're leaving. Stay behind me, adapt to my movements, and don't die." She turned to face him fully, and vulnerability flickered across her features. "Everything I know is about to try to kill us both." "I don't have second thoughts," Garrett said. Kerneth's smile was sharp and wild. "Then let's see what humans are really capable of." She hit the door controls and chaos poured in. The corridor exploded with plasma fire. Garrett dropped to one knee, returning fire as Kerneth vaulted over him, her body twisting midair to avoid a burst that would have taken her head off. She landed in a crouch, her stolen rifle barking 3 times. 3 guards dropped. "Move," she snapped. Garrett was already running. The facility's layout was a maze of red-lit passages and sealed blast doors, but Kerneth navigated it like she'd designed the place herself. She'd snap a hand signal, left, right, down, and he'd follow, trusting her instincts. When they hit intersections, she'd go high while he covered low, their movements finding a rhythm that felt older than the few minutes they'd known each other. A blast door started closing ahead. Kerneth put on a burst of speed that shouldn't have been possible, sliding under it with inches to spare. Garrett dove after her, the door's hydraulics hissing shut behind him. They were in a maintenance shaft, dim, quiet, except for their breathing. "You're faster than you look," she said. "You're stronger than you look." "I'm exactly as strong as I look." She was already moving to a panel on the wall, her fingers dancing across the interface. "Security hub is 3 levels down. I can access the systems from there, get us a clear path to the hangar." She pulled the panel open, revealing a ladder shaft that dropped into darkness. Above them, muffled voices and the heavy tread of boots. The hunt was organizing. They descended in silence. When they reached the bottom, Kiernath moved immediately to another door, this one requiring a biometric scan. Her palm pressed flat, and it opened. The security hub was smaller than Garrett expected, dominated by a curved console that wrapped around 3 walls. Screens flickered with surveillance feeds from across the facility. He could see troops massing near the upper levels, search patterns forming. Kiernath's fingers flew across the controls. They've locked down the primary hangar, secondary and tertiary as well. Emergency escape pods. Monitored. They'd track us before we cleared the station's gravity well. She pulled up a schematic. There's a maintenance bay on the outer ring, small craft, unmonitored because it's always in vacuum. We'd have to get there. Through 16 checkpoints and into hard vacuum without proper gear. Garrett moved closer, looking over her shoulder at the schematic. His hand found the small of her back without thinking, and he felt her stiffen, then lean into the touch just slightly. "What about this?" He pointed to a passage marked in yellow. Environmental systems recycling conduits for atmosphere processing. Big enough to move through. She zoomed in, her expression shifting from skeptical to considering. Barely, and they're not pressurized consistently. We'd be crawling through sections that alternate between breathable air and vacuum every few hundred meters. But unmonitored? Unmonitored, she confirmed. Her head turned, bringing her face inches from his. "You're thinking like a survivor. I'm thinking like someone who wants to keep breathing." She saved the route to a portable drive, then started wiping the console's access logs. Garrett watched her work, noting the precision, the way she anticipated the system's responses. "Can I ask you something?" he said. "You can ask. When you said breeding is artificial, is that by choice or necessity?" Her hands paused on the controls. Necessity. The toxin is indiscriminate. A Khazreth mother holds her infant and it dies. So we don't. We engineer reproduction in laboratories. We raise our young in isolation suits until they develop their own defenses. She resumed typing, but her voice had gone flat. We tell ourselves it makes us stronger. That emotional attachment is weakness. But you don't believe that. I never questioned it. Questioning serves no purpose when the answer cannot change. She pulled the drive free and turned to face him fully. Until 3 hours ago, when a human survived my touch, and I felt something I don't have words for. Garrett's hand came up to her face, thumb tracing the line of her jaw. We call it connection. Is it always this dangerous? The best things usually are. She kissed him again, but this time it was different, less desperate, more exploratory. Her hands mapped the contours of his shoulders, his chest, learning the geography of someone she could actually touch. When her fingers found the scars on his ribs, she pulled back slightly. You've been injured before. Occupational hazard. This one almost killed you. Her finger traced the raised tissue. And this one, and this one. Your species is fragile, yet you fight anyway. To everything. When we have to. Her expression shifted, something calculating moving behind those golden eyes. Then adapt to this. She pulled him closer, her mouth finding his neck, the pulse point where his heartbeat hammered against his skin. Her teeth scraped lightly, not breaking skin, but enough to send electricity down his spine. His hands fisted in her hair, careful of those striking ears, and she made that sound again. Half growl, half surrender. Kiernath, he managed. We don't have time for this, she said against his skin. No, they're hunting us. Yes, neither of them moved. Then the proximity alarm shrieked, troops entering the level above them. Kiernath pulled away, her professional mask slamming back into place. Environmental conduit, now. She led him to a panel near the floor, one that required her to wrench it free with brute strength. The opening beyond was dark and narrow. Garrett could hear the rush of recycled air, smell the chemical bite of scrubbers working overtime. I'll go first, she said. Stay close. When the atmosphere drops, hold your breath. The vacuum sections are short, 30 seconds maximum. And if we don't make it, then your last thought will be of me. She dropped into the conduit. Garrett followed, pulling the panel shut behind them. The crawl was claustrophobic hell. The conduit's walls pressed close, and the air tasted recycled and thin. Karnath moved ahead with liquid efficiency. The first time the atmosphere failed, Garrett felt it in his ears, a pressure change that made his drums ache. Then the air was just gone. His lungs burned. Darkness crept at the edges of his vision. Karnath's hand found his in the blackness, squeezing once. Then air rushed back, and he was gasping. 11 more sections, Karnath said. Can you manage? Have to. They kept moving. The conduit branched, narrowed, opened into chambers filled with humming machinery. On the 5th vacuum section, Garrett's vision started to gray out. On the 8th, he thought he might not make it. But Karnath's hand was always there, pulling him forward. When they finally emerged into the maintenance bay, Garrett collapsed on the deck plating. Karnath crouched beside him, her hand on his back. Slowly. He focused on her voice. When his vision cleared, he looked up to see her watching him with something that might have been concern. You did well, she said. The maintenance bay stretched around them. A massive space open to the void on one side, held back only by a shimmering barrier field. Small craft hung in various states of repair. But in the far corner, Garrett spotted something intact, a patrol skiff, sleek and predatory. That one, he said, pointing. Karnath followed his gaze. It's functional, but getting to it means crossing the bay floor while exposed to external sensors. Do we have a choice? No. She stood, offering him her hand. Stay low, move fast. Her hand in his felt electric. He let her pull him up, and they moved together across the bay floor, two shadows against the vast backdrop of stars beyond the barrier field. They were 10 feet from the skiff when the alarm started again. Run! Karnath's voice cut through the klaxons. Garrett sprinted. Behind them, the bay doors were opening, disgorging troops. Plasma fire streaked past, scorching the deck. Karnath reached the skiff first, her hands flying over the access panel. The hatch opened with agonizing slowness. Garrett turned, providing covering fire. His rifle's charge dropped to 20%. 15. 10. Get in! Karnath was in the pilot's seat, systems already coming online. Garrett dove through the hatch, and Karnath slammed the controls. The skiff's engines roared to life, lifting them off the deck as plasma fire hammered their shields. She banked hard, threading them through the barrier field with inches to spare, and suddenly they were in open space. Pursuit? Garrett asked, strapping into the co-pilot's seat. Launching now, 4 fighters. She was pushing the skiff to its limits. They'll overtake us in 3 minutes. Can we fight them? 4-1 in a maintenance skiff? Her smile was sharp and wild. Let's find out. The first missile streaked past close enough that Garrett felt the heat through the hull. Karnath rolled the skiff hard, her hands dancing across controls that responded with desperate sluggishness. This wasn't a fighter. It was a glorified maintenance pod with barely enough armament to deter pirates. Shields at 60%, she said, her voice clipped. We won't survive another direct hit. Can we outrun them? No, but we can outthink them. She dove toward a debris field, remnants of some long-forgotten battle. Twisted metal and broken hull plating drifted in lazy spirals, each piece large enough to hide behind or deadly enough to collide with at speed. The pursuing fighters followed, their formations tightening. They're hurting us, Garrett said, watching the tactical display. Let them. Karnath threaded the skiff through a gap between 2 massive sections of hull plating, close enough that Garrett heard metal scrape metal. The fighters split, 2 going high, 2 going low. She waited until the last possible second, then killed the engines completely. The skiff's momentum carried them forward, but without power, they became just another piece of debris. The fighters shot past, their sensors calibrated for active targets, not cold metal drifting in the void. Karnath counted silently, then fired the engines in a hard burn that sent them 90 degrees off their previous vector. 2 of the fighters corrected immediately. The other 2 took longer, their formation broken. That's twice you've done something unexpected, Garrett said. Your species doesn't have a monopoly on adaptation. She allowed herself a small smile, then her expression hardened. Incoming transmission, command level override. She activated the channel. A face filled the small screen, older male Kazreth, his crimson skin marked with the ritual scars of command rank. Commander Tarvok, Kirneth's direct superior. Huntress Kirneth, Tarvok's voice carried absolute authority. You have violated 17 codes, murdered 12 personnel, and stolen Imperial property. Explain yourself. I was contaminated, Commander, Kirneth said steadily. Standard protocol demanded my termination. I chose survival. By allying with the very specimen you were ordered to assess, return to the facility, face judgment with honor. There is no honor in dying for a system that treats us as disposable assets. Tarvok's expression darkened. You were my finest student. I taught you everything, and you throw it away for what, a human? He survived my touch, Kirneth said quietly. Do you understand what that means? For the first time in my life, I am not alone in my own skin. Then you are lost. Tarvok leaned forward. Deliver the human to us, alive. We will study his immunity, replicate it, use it to perfect our weapons. Do this, and I will argue for your rehabilitation rather than execution. Kirneth's jaw tightened. Garrett watched her face, saw the war happening behind those golden eyes. She said, Then you are an enemy of the Empire. The transmission cut. Immediately, the fighters broke their holding pattern and came in fast, weapons hot. Kirneth's hands flew across the controls. We need to jump now. Jump where? The weapon deployment fleet. She pulled up a data stream from the portable drive. Before we left, I accessed the facility's intelligence archives, including their location. Garrett's blood went cold. That's suicide. That's survival. They won't expect us to jump directly into their staging area. We'll have maybe 30 seconds of confusion. Enough time to transmit what we know to your colonies. You'd betray your entire species for mine? Her hands stilled on the controls. She turned to face him fully, and the raw vulnerability in her expression stole his breath. I don't know what I'm doing, she said. Every instinct I have tells me this is wrong, that I should kill you, return to Tarvok, accept my punishment, but then I think about never touching you again, never feeling what I felt in that cell, and the thought is... She trailed off. Unbearable. Garrett reached across the narrow cockpit, his hand finding hers. Then we jump. If we survive this, we can never go back, either of us. Sounds like a fair trade. Her fingers laced through his, squeezing hard. Then she turned back to the controls and initiated the jump sequence. The skiff's drive whined as it spooled up, reality beginning to bend at the edges of Garrett's vision. The fighters opened fire. Plasma bolts hammered their shields, dropping them to 30%, 2010. Warning klaxons shrieked. Kirneth held course, waiting for the drive to reach critical mass. Kirneth, trust me. The universe folded. Garrett's stomach inverted, his vision went white, and for a brief, eternal moment, he existed in no space at all. Then they slammed back into reality with violence that rattled his teeth. Stars, hundreds of ships, a fleet that stretched across the viewport like a mechanical constellation. Transmitting, Kirneth said, her fingers already working. All frequencies. Your colonies will receive this in approximately 4 hours. They've seen us, Garrett said, watching the tactical display light up with targeting locks. 20 ships vectoring our position. 30 seconds, that's all we need. The seconds crawled by. 15, 20, 25. The weapons locks multiplied. 50 ships now. 100. Transmission complete, Kirneth said. Now we run. She plotted a jump directly toward the fleet's flagship, using its mass as a gravity slingshot to reach jump velocity before the smaller ships could close the distance. It was insane. It was brilliant. The skiff screamed toward the flagship, its shields failing, hull plates beginning to peel away. Warning lights painted the cockpit red. Jump in 5, Kirneth said. 4, 3. Kirneth. 2. Her hand found his again. 1. The universe folded. This time was worse. Longer. Garrett felt his consciousness stretching across distances that shouldn't exist. Kirneth's hand in his was the only anchor. When they emerged, the silence was absolute. No pursuit, no fleet, just stars and darkness and the labored breathing of 2 people who'd just bet everything on a single desperate gamble. Where are we? Garrett asked. Uncharted space. No beacons, no colonies, no Empire presence. She killed the engines, letting them drift. We have maybe 3 days of life support, no food stores. So we bought ourselves 3 days. We bought your colonies a fighting chance. She turned to face him, and her eyes were bright. That has to be enough. Garrett unbuckled from his seat and moved to hers, his hands framing her face. You gave up everything. I gained something I didn't know existed. We might die out here. Was it worth it? Her answer was to pull him down into a kiss that erased every doubt, every fear. Her hands pulled at his shirt, mapping skin she'd only touched in fragments before. His fingers found the seals on her armor, releasing them one by one until black plating clattered to the deck. I don't know how to do this, she whispered against his mouth. My people don't. We don't have this. We'll figure it out together. They did. In the cramped cockpit of a dying ship, surrounded by the infinite void, they discovered what it meant to be something other than alone. Her skin was warm under his hands, her responses alternating between fierce and tentative as she learned what touch could mean beyond violence. He learned the geography of her, the places that made her gasp, the spots that made her claws dig into his shoulders, the exact angle that made her say his name like a prayer. Afterward, they lay tangled together in the pilot's seat, her head on his chest, his fingers tracing idle patterns on her back. I should tell you something, he said quietly. She stiffened. What? My immunity, it wasn't random. Her head lifted, golden eyes searching his face. Explain. Earth's military has been studying Khazreth biology for 2 years. They've been engineering soldiers, genetic modifications designed to resist your toxins. I volunteered for the program. He forced himself to meet her eyes. My assignment was to infiltrate your facility, get close to a high-ranking officer, female if possible, extract intelligence. The silence stretched like broken glass. So everything was a lie, she said finally, her voice flat. The mission was real. The immunity was engineered. But this, he tightened his arms around her, this wasn't part of any plan. How convenient. She pushed away from him, grabbing her armor and beginning to seal it back into place with sharp, angry movements. You were designed to seduce me, and I fell for it. That's not... Get away from me. I sabotaged my extraction beacon, he said quietly, 3 days ago, before we even escaped the facility. Earth's military has no idea where I am. I chose this. I chose you. You chose a convenient ally. Someone with access, skills, and enough emotional damage to be easily manipulated. You really believe that? Her hands stilled on her armor seals. I don't know what to believe. The ship's console beeped, a proximity alert. Kerneth's head snapped toward it, her entire demeanor shifting instantly to combat readiness. That's not possible, she said, pulling up the sensor display. We're in uncharted space. There shouldn't be anything within light years. But there was. A ship, massive, its configuration unlike anything in either human or Khazreth design databases, and it was heading directly toward them. The unknown ship filled their viewport within minutes, its scale making the skiff look like an insect beside a predator. The hull was organic, curved surfaces that looked grown rather than built, bioluminescent veins pulsing with sickly green light. I'm getting a scan, Kerneth said. It's reading our hull composition, our power signatures, even our life signs. Can we run? Our drive is nearly depleted. One more jump before we're dead in space. She studied the readout. Whatever it is, it's not attacking, just observing. A new alert chimed, incoming transmission, data streaming directly into their ship's computer, bypassing every security protocol. Text appeared on the screen, rendered in perfect English and Khazreth script simultaneously. Damaged vessels require assistance. Proceed to docking Bay 7. It knows our languages, Kerneth said, both of them. We don't have much choice. 3 days of life support, or whatever's in that ship. Could be a trap. Could be salvation. She piloted them toward the coordinates. A section of the hull dilated like a living thing, revealing a cavernous space. The skiff settled onto a landing platform that adjusted itself to their vessel's dimensions. Atmosphere reading as breathable, Kerneth said. Garrett grabbed the rifle, checking its charge. 15%. The hatch opened with a hiss. The air that flooded in was warm and humid, carrying a scent like copper and growing things. A doorway opened in the far wall. Through it came a figure that made Garrett's breath catch. Humanoid, mostly. 7 feet tall with elongated limbs and fingers that had too many joints. Its skin was gray-green and seemed to shift texture as it moved. No visible eyes, just smooth planes where a face should be. "Greetings," it said, and its voice came from everywhere at once. "I am Designate 17 of the Archival Collective. You may call me 17. "What do you want with us?" Kiernath demanded, her rifle trained on center mass. "Want? Nothing. I render assistance when possible." 17's head tilted. "You are unusual, human and Khazreth, traveling together. This combination does not exist in our records." "We need fuel," Kiernath said. "Supplies, then we'll leave." "Of course, but first perhaps you would answer questions. An exchange. Information for resources." It felt wrong, but they were out of options, so they told it. Not everything, but enough. The capture, the immunity, the touch that shouldn't have been possible. The flight, the choice. 17 listened without interrupting. When they finished, silence stretched. "Fascinating," 17 said finally. "You represent an anomaly, a crack in the order of things." It moved to a control panel that grew from the wall. The Khazreth elite caste has been genetically isolated for 4,000 years, yet humans with barely 2 centuries of genetic engineering create a countermeasure. And you, Kiernath, your people prize strength, dominance, isolation. Yet when faced with the choice between duty and connection, you chose connection. "What are you saying?" Kiernath asked. "I am saying you are both anomalies, and anomalies are either the first sign of evolution or the last gasp of extinction." 17 turned to face them fully. "The Khazreth weapon you warned your colonies about, we are aware of it. We have been monitoring Khazreth expansion for 3 centuries. "Then help us stop it," Garrett said. "The collective does not interfere. We observe, we archive." 17 moved to another panel. "However, we can provide what you require to continue your journey: fuel, supplies, navigation data that will help you avoid both Khazreth and human patrols." "Why?" Kiernath asked. "The continuation of an interesting story. You have broken patterns. I am curious to see if you can break more." A door opened, revealing a corridor beyond. "Your vessel will be resupplied within the hour. In the meantime, I recommend you rest." 17 led them through corridors that seemed to reshape themselves. The room it showed them was surprisingly conventional. Bed, washing facilities, climate controls already adjusted. "I will return when your vessel is ready," 17 said, then flowed back through the door before it sealed. They were alone. Kiernath moved immediately to the walls, searching for monitoring devices. Garrett watched her work, seeing the tension in every movement. "Hey," he said quietly. "We need to be ready. This could still be a trap." Kiernath. "What?" She turned, and the anger in her face wasn't entirely about their situation. "I'm sorry," Garrett said. "About the immunity, about the mission, about not telling you sooner." "Why should I believe anything you say?" "Because I sabotaged my extraction beacon before we even left that cell. Because I could have turned you into 17. Because I'm still here." He took a step closer. "Because when you kissed me, I forgot every order I'd ever been given." Her hands clenched into fists. "You were designed to make me feel this way." "No, I was designed to survive your touch. Everything else?" He closed the distance between them. "That's just you and me." "I don't know how to trust this." "Neither do I, but we jumped into uncharted space together." She looked at him for a long moment, her golden eyes searching his face. Whatever she found there must have satisfied her because she stepped into his space, her hand coming up to rest against his chest. "If you're lying to me," she said quietly, "I will kill you, slowly." "Fair enough." Her other hand came up to frame his face. "I've never had anything that was mine, not truly. Everything in my life has belonged to the Empire, but this..." Her voice dropped. "This feels like mine." "It is yours. I am." When she kissed him, it was different than before. Less desperate, more certain. Her hands pulled at his clothes with newfound confidence, and he responded by finding the seals on her armor. They moved to the bed. Her skin was warm under his hands, her responses less tentative now as she learned what made him groan, what made his breath catch. He mapped every inch of her, memorizing the places where crimson skin deepened in shade, where those elongated ears were sensitive enough to make her gasp his name. "Tell me I'm not crazy," she breathed against his shoulder. "You're not crazy," Garrett said, "and it's worth it, I promise you." She believed him. He could see it in her eyes, feel it in the way she moved against him. Afterward, they lay tangled together, her fingers tracing the scars on his chest. "We still have to survive," she said quietly. "Yeah. The Khazreth will hunt us. Earth's military will consider you a deserter." "Yeah." She lifted her head to look at him, and despite everything, she was smiling. "Good. I was worried you'd try to convince me otherwise." The door chimed, 17's voice flowing through it. "Your vessel is resupplied. I have uploaded coordinates to 3 locations where you may find sanctuary. Choose wisely." Kiernath sat up, already reaching for her armor. When she looked at Garrett, there was something new in her expression, something that looked like hope. "Ready?" she asked. "Always." They dressed quickly and headed back to the docking bay. The skiff waited, its systems showing full fuel, full supplies. 17 stood near the hatch. "What will you do now?" it asked. Garrett and Kiernath exchanged glances. "We'll figure it out," Garrett said. "Fascinating. Most species require certainty before acting. You embrace uncertainty." 17 stepped aside. "Go, survive, prove that anomalies can become evolution rather than extinction." They boarded the skiff. As they lifted off and the bay doors opened to reveal the stars beyond, Garrett reached over and took her hand. "No turning back now," he said. "There never was," she replied. And together they flew into the unknown. 3 weeks in deep space changed things. The skiff's cramped quarters forced an intimacy that stripped away pretense. Garrett learned that Kiernath talked in her sleep, that she checked weapon systems every 6 hours. Kiernath learned that Garrett sang off key, that he had nightmares about the men he'd lost. They also learned to fight together. When Khazreth patrols found them, their movements synchronized without discussion. She'd roll, he'd fire. She'd dive, he'd anticipate. They survived by becoming one unit. Now, 21 days after escaping the Collective's ship, they approached the first of 17's coordinates, a moon orbiting a gas giant in an unnamed system. "Scanning surface," Kiernath said. "Underground structures, power signatures." They descended. A landing platform extended from a crater wall. Inside, a figure emerged from the shadows. Human, male, late 50s. "Garrett Stone," the man said. "Serial number 7743 Delta. Volunteered for Project Antigen 3 years ago." His eyes shifted to Kiernath, and Kiernath, 3rd Huntress, wanted for treason. Garrett's rifle came up. "Who are you?" "Colonel Benjamin Ashford, formerly of Earth Strategic Command. I defected 6 months ago." His expression darkened. "You think you were the only one they modified? There were 37 volunteers. You're the only one who survived." "What?" 97% mortality rate. You're the last." Ashford gestured deeper. "Come, we need to talk." They followed him through carved corridors. Other people appeared. Humans, aliens, all watching warily. "This is Haven," Ashford said. "A refuge for defectors." He led them to a room covered in maps. Ashford poured drinks. "When I was with Strategic Command, I learned something." He pulled up a holographic display. "The Archival Collective. You met 17, didn't you?" Garrett and Kiernath exchanged glances. "How do you know?" "Because 17 has encountered 37 species at critical junctures, always offering help, always keeping both sides fighting. They cultivate conflict." "For what purpose?" "Knowledge. They want to see what emerges from pressure." Ashford's jaw tightened. "The Khazreth weapon? Critical components match technology the Collective provided. Project Antigen's genetic sequencing, based on research that mysteriously appeared in Earth databases." "They're playing both sides," Garrett said. "Exactly. And you two broke their pattern. That's why they let you go, to see what you'd do next." Kiernath stood, pacing. "So everything is just another experiment? Your choice was real. Your feelings are real, but they're studying the consequences." Ashford gestured to the facility. "You can do something they don't expect. Unite people. Show them divisions between species aren't absolute." Garrett looked at Kiernath. "If we do this, everyone will hunt us." "Yes," Ashford agreed, "but you'll also inspire others." Kiernath met Garrett's eyes. I think we've been running since we met. I'm tired of running. She turned to him fully. If we're going to die anyway, we might as well die for something that matters. He kissed her, then turned to Ashford. What do you need? In 3 days, a convoy passes through the threshold sector, neutral space. If you intercept a Khazreth raider, save human traders, and have it broadcast. It would prove we're not enemies, Garrett finished. Over 3 days, Haven became home. At night, they returned to their quarters, making love with increasing confidence, talking about memories and dreams. On the 3rd morning, Ashford summoned them. The raider will strike here. I arranged it. A Khazreth commander, sympathetic to our cause, will stage a raid with disabled weapons. You'll intercept and save the convoy. It'll be broadcast. You're using us, Kiernath said. I'm giving you a platform. Garrett looked at Kiernath. It's manipulation. Everything's manipulation. The question is whether we believe in it, she turned to Ashford. We'll do it. The threshold sector was chaos. Dozens of ships trading. The convoy appeared. The raiders followed. Kiernath pushed the skiff between them. Khazreth vessels, break off. These merchants are under our protection. Under whose authority, traitor? Under the authority of someone tired of watching both our species bleed. Stand down or be disabled. The raiders came in, weapons firing blanks. Garrett returned fire, shots carefully missing. The combat was choreographed but convincing. Until the 4th ship appeared. Kiernath, Garrett said, that's not part of the plan. Khazreth military, a destroyer with enough firepower to vaporize everything, targeting them. They found us. The destroyer opened fire, real fire. Kiernath rolled, dove, pushed every system past limits. We can't outrun a destroyer, Garrett said. No, but we can make them regret finding us. She plotted a course directly at the destroyer, ramming speed. I know, there isn't another way. Her hand found his. The destroyer grew larger, weapons blazing, shields dropping to critical. Garrett pulled her close, lips finding hers. I know, she said, I love you too. The destroyer fired point blank. The world went white. Garrett woke to pain, medical bay, not human, not Khazreth. Beside him, Kiernath, unconscious but breathing. You're awake. 17 materialized. We retrieved you both before catastrophic failure. Your injuries were severe, but you survived. You're still studying us? Always, but also assisting. 17 moved to Kiernath's bed. When she wakes, you will have a choice. The galaxy now knows your story. The broadcast reached 17 systems. Both governments deny it, but doubt exists. You can hide at Haven or continue. Show the galaxy that cooperation is possible. Kiernath's eyes opened. Golden, finding Garrett. Did we die? Almost. Pity I had plans. Garrett laughed. What kind of plans? The kind involving you, me, and not dying for a few more decades. She turned toward him. What now? We keep going, Garrett said. Even hunted by everyone? Especially then, someone has to show them they're wrong. Us? Why not us? 3 days later, healed, they stood in the docking bay. 17 had provided a proper light cruiser. Ready? Kiernath asked from the pilot's seat. Never, Garrett replied, but let's go anyway. She smiled, that sharp, wild smile, and powered up the engines. As they lifted off, Garrett took her hand. Think we'll survive what comes next. Maybe if we're lucky. I don't believe in luck anymore. Neither do I. He brought her hand to his lips. I believe in us. That's even more unlikely. Yeah, but we've been doing the unlikely since we met. She laughed. Together they jumped into the unknown, not running anymore, but moving forward, toward whatever the galaxy had waiting, toward the story they would write themselves, toward a future that belonged to them alone.